Hey, it's time for another edition of the Cseekly Recap. I'm your host Csomm, and I'm here to go a bit deeper into the topics that I've covered in my shorts. The footage behind is from the game Diablo 4 Lord of Hatred. Let's get this show on the road. The first topic that I want to talk about is all about Ubisoft and Black Flag Resynced. Apparently, Ubisoft keeps doubling down because Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced is not an RPG. But with new combat systems, enemy health bars, customizable HUD options, and removing features, fans are starting to question where the line is. Is this a faithful remake or a subtle evolution? Well, I guess we're gonna find out when the game comes out. But what's interesting here about this whole Resynced situation is they keep repeating that this is not an RPG. And to that I say, what an interesting line of thought. Because everybody knows Assassin's Creed Black Flag was never a 100% RPG game, so to speak. I mean, sure, it had certain features that were RPG-esque, like, for example, upgrading your ship, upgrading your pouches, farming stuff, adding more skills and slots and whatever to certain elements. But Edward as a character was always set up. You couldn't upgrade him. You could only upgrade his tools. So every single game that has some kind of a semblance of upgrading the previous thing to be better is essentially an RPG, but not full-fledged RPG, that's what I'm trying to say. So Ubisoft continually hammering this that it's not an RPG, to me is just smoke and mirrors because it's kinda removing our attention from other things. And these other things are, for example, removing Hidden Blade as a viable weapon, dumbing down the whole parry system, simplifying the eavesdrop missions. Those kinds of things that were staple of the game. I don't know why they did it. I don't know if that's going to be a good experience with the Resynced edition, but now, as things stand, I don't really like that whole situation. I think it's taking away from the core game, the one that we were used to play and like, because, again, everybody likes stabbing people in the face with hidden blades. That's the whole shtick when it comes to the Assassin's Creed games, and now you are removing that aspect after we had it, even from Ezio days when he got the double hidden blade and you can do all kinds of cool shit with it. That's 100% a clear downgrade, as far as I'm concerned. And them trying to sell it like this is some kind of an amazing feature that we are going to use in order to finish the enemies and whatnot, I believe that's just pure bullshit. I have no fucking clue how the hell they managed to get to that conclusion. One thing that comes to mind was that preview that they showed where they invited all these quote-unquote influencers and Black Flag enthusiasts or whatever the fuck you want to call them. And if one of those motherfuckers decided that we need to remove these things because it wasn't really good, and then developers listen to that person or people, I think you should be slapped to oblivion because whoever came up with that particular change, there is something inherently wrong with you, my man, or my woman, or whatever the fuck you are. I suppose we are going to see, like I said, when the game launches, how or what kind of effect that's going to have on gameplay, and whether or not it's going to mess with the original spirit of the game. But I have a slight suspicion that's going to be a thing. Not because I like hating on Ubisoft. I'm actually not hating on them because they are Ubisoft. I'm hating on them because they're retarded. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not a new game, by the way, which is priced $60, is going to be better than the one that's priced $30 or the one that you already have in your library. Because if that's the case, that the older game is much better than the newer one, with all the tech that we have, it's a fucking shame, let me tell you that. And obviously because Ubisoft is dumb to allow that to be the case, whereas if you're making a remake, it's always better than the original game, I think that might jeopardize their attempts to remake more games, which again, it's a situation where everybody fucking loses. Why can't you just be fucking normal and make the game as is, improve certain things, make it more smoother, and then everybody's gonna be fucking happy? At the end of the day, most of these remakes are focusing to improve stuff, primarily graphics and then the gameplay elements, but for some strange fucking reason, Ubisoft decided to improve graphics but downgrade the gameplay elements, which is the worst thing you can possibly do when it comes to remakes. At least that's my opinion and that's how I see it. At the end of the day, it's Ubisoft we're talking about. They are known to do stupid shit like this, and we will witness it biting them in the ass. And again, it's like a cycle that never breaks, and then everybody's like, oh my god, why Ubisoft is doing so badly, and why are their games so shitty? Well, there's your problem, man. It's fucking obvious why these things are happening. Or at least it's normal for a reasonable person, because it seems to me that reason abandoned Ubisoft a long time ago. And to be honest, now that I see all these things, what's happening with Resynced, I cannot wait to try it out to see if it's shitty the way I think it's going to be. And if it's not, more power to Ubisoft, I'll eat my words. But somehow I think that I might be onto something. So again, the release date is relatively soon, and we'll definitely see when it releases what's the current situation. Hell, I might even replay the original one just to make certain comparisons to see whether or not certain things are better or not, but we'll see what happens. And speaking of listening to me whether or not the game is good or bad, Cain believes modern gamers are relying too much on influencers, not just for reviews, but to form their opinions entirely. With so many games releasing, players are turning to creators for quick verdicts instead of making up their own minds. But is this just convenience, or is it changing how games are being made and experienced? From viral moments to skip it culture, this shift could be bigger than it seems. This is an interesting topic, and I could probably talk 20-30 minutes just about this particular situation. But essentially, it boils down to this particular problem. People are so trustworthy and tribal these days that no matter what you do, you're always going to have stuff like this game is bad or this game is good, but nothing in between. Because God forbid you say that the game is meh, or the game is good but it has problems, or the game is bad but it has certain, positive things. It's either fully negative or fully positive. In my situation, for example, the way I do things is I play the game from start to finish, 100% if I can. Obviously, I go through main story and most of the secondary quests, but at the end of the day, I'm always trying to do as close to 100% as it is possible. And only then I will give my opinion, unless the game is so fucking bad, but then I will never call it a review. I will call it first impressions. One recent example of what I was doing in that particular sense was with Crimson Desert. I played 8 to 10 hours of Crimson Desert when it initially came out, and it was a shit show, but I called it first impressions. Now that alone should give you ideas whether or not you're supposed to engage with this game or buy it, but I'm not the one who decides whether or not the game is going to be good for you. What I'm giving is just my opinion, and if your opinion or impression aligns with mine, awesome. More power to you, or more power to me, I don't know. But when I see people defending certain things that I know are factually accurate or truthful, and I've played the game and I see them supporting the game no matter what, I think you're immediately an idiot. Or at the very best, your standards are so low that you can consume anything, which it's even worse. Because at the end of the day, when we reduce our standards to a point where it's meaningless, then what's the point of criticizing anything? It's pure 100% consumerism, and people will just eat whatever you give them in front on their plate. So I guess that's even worse. Long term, that is. And then what can happen in the future is other developers seeing that certain developers have sort of managed to avoid the broader criticism for what they're doing, and then they are going to do again the same thing. But then again, what can happen is it can backfire. So essentially, nobody wins with this particular situation. I suppose at the end of the day, when you are criticizing something or making a review or whatnot, the most important thing is to give a proper example why certain thing is good or certain thing is bad. Because when you have a reference point, which you can use in order to make a comparison, then comparison becomes even more valid. And ultimately, it cannot be ignored because that's how we operate. You're always going to set certain benchmarks and then use the same benchmark in order to compare what's in front of you. But if you have people who are basing their opinion just on feels, which again, it's a legit thing, but it doesn't work because, again, what you feel is not the same what I feel, I would pretty much stay clear from that person because it's not something that is a good method in order to relay to the general public whether or not the system is good or bad. So you gotta be, honest when you are doing these things, but also provide context, because without it, it's all about this is good, this is bad. Why? I don't know, it is what it is, and that's really bad. So these people who are doing what I just described should be avoided like the plague, because in my opinion, they're not adding anything valuable when it comes to the factual situation of the thing. They're just giving you their mega subjective opinion because, like Tim says, stuff is flashy and then it makes you happy. yeah, stuff is flashy and it can give you a brief sense of, I don't know, satisfaction. But when you go back to reality and you see what kind of slog you need to go through in order to experience that satisfaction, it's dumb. One latest example, what I can give you in order to showcase what I'm talking about, is with Diablo 4 Lord of Hatred expansion. You see, they have added this system which is called war plans, where you grind in order to get points, which then can be used in the war plan skill tree, which is then used to modify your experience in the various endgame systems that the game has. And that's all nice and fine, but when you make another character, you will soon figure out that these war plans are not account-wide. What that means is that your character, the other one, will not have access to what your main character already achieved. And then when you pair this with the fact that mythical uniques are now level 70, when back in the day they were level 35, it is clear to anyone that rolling another character is going to be pain in the ass. Because nobody is going to play another character with all these limitations, but more importantly, nobody is going to perform the same grind with another character because essentially it is meaningless since you already achieved the maximum what you can achieve with your main character. And then when you say this to people, in a sense that Blizzard doesn't want you to play alts in Diablo 4 and you are essentially stuck with one character because you lose so much, and then at the end of the day you need to go through that grind again, they just look at you like you said something outrageous, but then their brain starts working and they're like, fuck this, I'm not going to make another character, I'm just going to stick with one, and fuck it, it is what it is. So my point here is very simple. This one mechanic that was introduced is amazing, but when you look at it from a different context, it's not that amazing. And this is what we need. We need this type of analysis, we need this type of showcase in order to give the full picture, because some people don't really think along these lines, and then when they figure out what's happening, they might get unpleasantly surprised, and then everything they have achieved back with their original character just falls flat because now you have been hit with something that you never thought that might be a reality. So to summarize this particular news, be smart, people. Don't trust everyone, do your cross-checking, do a bit deeper digging, and then maybe stick with someone you think you trust, but always be vigilant, because people change their minds, people change their approaches, how they review stuff, how they give you information. And always have your own self at the first spot, everything else be damned. Because in this day and age, that's the only thing that you have left in order to, I suppose, protect you from all kinds of bullshit that you're being bombarded nonstop. For my final story, for this particular recap, it's all about Subnautica 2. Apparently, Subnautica 2 is aiming higher than ever. Unknown Worlds promises more biomes, creatures, and leviathans than any of its previous early access launches, and that's just the beginning. The early access starts on the May 14th, and the game is expected to evolve over at least 2 years, with player feedback shaping its final form. If they get it right, this could become something truly special. But early access always comes with risks, and the question is, will it live up to hype? And then I said, doesn't matter, just buy it so we can stick it to crafting. Because why the fuck not? But let's go back to the original story, which is basically that Subnautica 2 is finally coming to early access. Now, if you are listening and if you're interested in what I'm doing, you might ask, well, are you going to play it? And the answer is no. For quite obvious reasons. It's early access. It's going to take at least 2 years to finish. And truth to be told, I don't want to be a playtester for free. I mean, sure, if you pay me, I will playtest your game, I will give you my honest feedback and all that, but in this situation, I need to pay to them in order to play the game, and then I'm giving them feedback for free. I don't know, man, this whole early access situation it's weird to me. I am basically doing stuff for free, and then they are trying to make the game instead of having some kind of a vision what they want to do, but for whatever reason, we have this early access mentality which I will never understand. I might play the game when it comes to the version 0.9 or something along the lines, because essentially that's a finished game, you just need to polish certain bugs and all that shit. But playing it from the earliest build possible and then pushing further and further with the devs as they are fixing things, I don't know. I always get disappointed, and I really don't want to live through that experience again. One of the recent examples was Path of Exile 2, and I remember everyone was fucking hyped about that game, and I initially said that I'm not going to play it, but for some strange reason, one of my friends bought me the code, and you're going to play it because you have the damn thing. You're not going to let it sit in your library doing nothing, particularly when everybody is jumping on the hype train and you kinda get affected by the whole situation, so you cave in and you try it. And that whole situation was colossal fuck up as far as I'm concerned, especially knowing what the original game, Path of Exile 1, had, and now they are kinda trying to change stuff. I was very much disappointed. I obviously tried to make my points, but then I hit a wall, which is called fanboys, and I got attacked from all kinds of sides. But as the game was progressing and they were pushing more patches, I have noticed that everything that I have said was justified because I saw people making the same points that I was making. So essentially, for my own sanity, I am kinda staying away from early access games because I just don't want to get exposed by the bullshit that these situations always carry with them. I might probably check certain Let's Plays to see what people are, doing, saying, or to see whether or not there are certain things that I would like to experience after the game comes to a reasonable version where you cannot really consider it as early access. But the whole problem that I have with Subnautica 2 is how long it will be in early access. People are saying that, it's not going to be that long because they already have the stuff built from the first one, but the developers themselves say that is going to take at least 2 years, so that's 2 years minimum. And I'm always a proponent of Murphy's Law, and in this situation, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, which means that it's not going to be 2 years, it's probably going to be 3. So my advice to you is this: if you like Subnautica 2 and you wanna fuck with crafting, I suggest you buy it, but then you don't play it. And this is a very weird advice that I can give you, but I firmly stand behind it because I really don't like I said, these early access games, and it just makes me so disappointed by the lack of features, and then I need to wait 3 months, 4 months for the new feature, and I just lose interest. I mean, check what's happening with Windrose. The developer said it's going to take at least 6 months before they actually do something in order to improve the game systems and all that good shit. So yeah, I would like for experience to be as fresh as possible and not to become stale over time, so I'm gonna wait till Subnautica 2 gets to a proper state, and then maybe I will try it and give my opinion about it. Because trust me, nobody wants to play Subnautica 2 more than me, but I want a full experience. I don't want something that was duct taped and, made barely working in order to experience it, because I believe that's just going to be detrimental to my whole experience towards the game. And that's basically it when it comes to the news that I covered this week. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I encourage you to leave comments. I read all of them, and I'm very happy to interact there with you guys. And if you enjoy this content, consider liking it, subscribing, all that good shit for more discussions like this. And that's it from me, until the next one.